My neighbor asked me to check on his apartment for a week. He never came back, but left me to deal with the consequences. He lived 2 doors down. 3rd floor, same landing. We weren't close, but we were neighbor close. The kind where you nod, say hi in the hallway, maybe help carry a heavy box once or twice. His name was Ivan. Late 30s, quiet, neat. Worked remote, wore the same blue hoodie almost every time I saw him. Never threw loud parties. Occasionally left baked goods outside his door with sticky notes that said, "Help yourself." It was easy to like him. So when he knocked one Tuesday night and said he had a favor to ask, I didn't hesitate. "Just a week," he said. "I'm flying out for a short trip, and I need someone to feed the cat and water the plants." He handed me a spare key and a printed sheet of instructions. 1 scoop of dry food in the morning, 1 in the evening. Change the water daily. Plants are all in the windowsill. Twice during the week is enough. There's cash on the counter for any extras. I said sure. No problem. I wasn't going anywhere. I asked where he was going. He smiled, kind of vague. "A little reset trip." I didn't press. That Friday, I let myself in. Everything was in place. Apartment clean. Smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and coffee. A folded blanket on the couch. Cat food lined up. His cat, a black and white rescue named Marvin, was curled up in a ball on the armchair and didn't even flinch when I entered. The note said, "Thanks again. Be back next Friday. Let me know if anything comes up." Nothing did. For a while. The week passed. I fed Marvin. Watered the plants. Picked up 2 letters shoved through the door. No messages from Ivan. No check-ins. No. "Hey, all good?" Friday came. No sign of him. I figured maybe his flight was delayed. Maybe he was staying the weekend. Saturday. Sunday. Still nothing. By Monday, I texted him. "Hey, just checking in. All good?" No reply. I waited 2 more days. Sent another text. Called once. Went straight to voicemail. That's when the unease kicked in. It wasn't panic. Not yet. Just a strange itch in the back of my mind. His place was still untouched. Same food in the fridge. Milk turning. Lettuce wilting. Cat litter piling up. And Marvin, now far more talkative, started waiting for me at the door like I was his actual owner. The plants were fine. The cat was fine. I wasn't. I didn't know how long I was supposed to keep playing house sitter for someone who no longer existed in the building. I didn't know his family. Didn't know his workplace. Didn't even know where he'd gone. All I had was his name, his apartment, and his absence. By the end of the 2nd week, I opened the cabinets, not snooping, just trying to figure out if this was normal. Everything looked intact. Pantry stocked. Dishes clean. Nothing packed. Like he'd left in a rush, but planned to come back. The fridge, however, told a different story. Rotten fruit. A container of rice that had gone fuzzy green. A jug of orange juice that hissed when I touched it. It didn't look like someone who'd prepared for a short trip. Still, I waited. 3rd week, nothing. Now I was fully stuck. Feeding a cat that wasn't mine. Throwing out food I hadn't bought. Air freshening someone else's forgotten apartment. My texts went unanswered. My calls still hit voicemail. But I couldn't stop going. Because Marvin was still there. Still purring. Still waiting. And it felt cruel to abandon him just because his owner had ghosted. The more days passed, the more absurd it all became. I'd agreed to 1 week. Now it had been 24 days. Every time I unlocked the door, I expected, half hoped, to find a note. Or suitcases. Or movement. Instead, silence. And a cat who seemed completely fine with this arrangement. At some point, I stopped checking the time while I was in there. Just did the basics. In and out. I wasn't scared, not really. But the longer it went on, the more I started to feel a second shadow behind me when I stood in his apartment. The knowledge that I had stepped into something I didn't fully agree to. That I wasn't doing a favor anymore. I was covering for someone. I just didn't know why. Week 4. I stopped pretending it was temporary. I bought new litter for Marvin because the old bag ran out. refilled his food dish with stuff I paid for, picked up 5 more pieces of mail wedged through the door, 2 of them stamped final notice. The plants started to brown from the heat wave. I watered them daily now. I hadn't heard a single word from Ivan. At this point, it was no longer about politeness. It was basic decency. I opened the kitchen drawer out of frustration and found a small black notebook, plain cover, no label, no lock. Inside, he'd scribbled down grocery lists, calendar notes, a few passwords, and a page titled, "I see. In case of emergency." 3 names. 1 phone number each. One said, "Sister Daria." It felt intrusive, but I told myself this wasn't snooping. This was necessary. I dialed the number on speaker, sitting in the living room of a man who hadn't been seen in 27 days. Marvin curled up beside me like this was just another Tuesday. 3 rings. Then a woman picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was clear, calm. Ukrainian accent. I introduced myself and explained, slowly, that I lived next to Ivan and had been watching his place. She went quiet for a moment, then said something that made the hairs on my arm stand up. "I thought you knew." "Knew what?" "He left. He sold everything he didn't need and flew out to Bali last month. I thought he would have told someone. I assumed you were informed." I blinked. "Wait. He's not coming back?" Another pause. "Not for now. He said he needed a reset. That he was done with this city. He wanted to disappear for a while. I honestly didn't expect anyone else would be involved." I felt my breath catch. I looked around at his bookshelves, still full. The rug. The pans on the stovetop. His shoes by the door. "So you knew he was leaving long term?" "Yes. He said he was tired. He didn't trust the system here. He cashed out. Said it was time. But he didn't tell the landlord. Or cancel his utilities. Or find someone to take care of the cat. That's me now, by the way." She exhaled slowly. "He said he was handling things. I didn't ask questions. We're not that close." I let the silence hang. 27 days, and the only real information came from a half-interested relative who thought I knew. "He asked me to water the plants," I said. She didn't laugh. She didn't apologize. She just said, "That sounds like him." When I hung up, I sat in the middle of the room for a long time. Everything looked the same. Furniture, walls, calendar still stuck on the same page, but the story had shifted completely. This wasn't an emergency. This was a decision. Ivan had planned his exit. He just hadn't planned how much of his exit would land on me. The next morning, I made a list. Drop off the mail at the front office. Take inventory of what's actually valuable. Find a no-kill shelter for Marvin, just in case. Call the landlord. That last one I dreaded. But it felt necessary now. So I did it. Used the number from the lease notice Ivan had pinned to the fridge. A guy named Marcus answered. Friendly, until he realized who I was calling about. "Ivan? He still lives there, right?" "Not really," I said. "He's in Bali." Silence. "I'm sorry, he what?" I explained. The cat. The vanishing. The key. The voicemail. The phone calls. The woman on the other end of the emergency number. Marcus went quiet, then let out a tired sigh. "He owes rent. 3 months. That hit me sideways. I'd assumed he prepaid. Or left clean. "Wait, so he was already behind before he left?" "Yeah," Marcus said. Said work was slow. Asked for more time. I gave it to him. Said he'd wire everything by the 15th. That was 2 weeks ago." "Yup." So Ivan hadn't just left. He'd skipped. Quietly. On purpose. Without warning anyone he didn't have to face. That night, I came back to the apartment one last time. Marvin greeted me like always. The place smelled the same. Same dust in the same corners. But now, I could see the gaps. The empty folders in the cabinet. The USB drive missing from the shelf. The tiny signs that said, this wasn't careless. This was careful. He'd taken only what he needed, just enough to vanish cleanly in his eyes, and left everything else to rot. Including the people. I thought about staying quiet, just locking his door one last time, leaving the key under the mat, and forgetting the whole thing ever happened. I figured, it's not my mess, right? But the truth was, it was my mess. Because I'd been feeding it. For weeks. And the longer I sat with that, the angrier I got. Not loud, dramatic anger. The quiet kind. The kind that sits in your teeth when someone shrinks their world down and lets it collapse on top of you, and then walks away like they've done nothing wrong. I texted Marcus, the landlord, and asked to meet. Told him I had the key and would return it in person. He showed up the next afternoon. Middle-aged guy, pressed shirt, clipboard in hand. He stepped inside and immediately winced. "Smells like cat." "That's because there is a cat." I showed him around. He took notes, nodded slowly. "So you're not on the lease, right?" "No. I was just helping out." "He told me he'd be gone a week." Marcus sighed. "It's been over a month." I nodded. 29 days. He flipped a page on his clipboard. Last rent payment was in January. He owed for February, March, and now April. That's almost $4,000. I didn't say anything. Not my debt. Not my name on the paperwork. But part of me still felt complicit. Like I'd been part of some long con without knowing it. "You want to take over the unit?" Marcus asked suddenly. "You've got a good head on your shoulders." "I'd rather have someone reliable in here." I almost laughed. "No offense, but I never wanted to live in Ivan's ghost." He nodded once, no hard feelings. "Fair enough." He walked the place once more, took photos. When he got to the fridge, he gagged. "You fed the cat, but you couldn't throw out the milk?" "It's not my fridge." He shrugged, closed it, scribbled something. Then, "What are you gonna do with the animal?" I didn't answer right away. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, not his, with Marvin in my lap. I Googled shelters. Made a few calls. Asked around. Found one 10 minutes away that had space and a no-kill policy. I called them in the morning. Brought Marvin in by 2 p.m. He didn't fight the carrier. Didn't meow. Just sat there, blinking at me with those blank green eyes, like none of this surprised him. Like he was used to being left behind. The woman at the shelter was kind. "You sure you don't want to keep him? He seems calm." "He's not mine," I said. That felt like the first honest sentence I'd spoken in this entire story. I filled out the paperwork. Left a small donation. Said goodbye. 3 days later, I got a WhatsApp message from a number I didn't recognize. No name. Just a waving hand emoji. Then, "Heard you talked to Daria. Hope that didn't stress you out too much. Sorry I didn't give you the full download before leaving. Things were hectic." I stared at the screen. Then scrolled up. It was him. Ivan. New number. New profile pic. Same tone. Casual, evasive. Like all of this was just an inconvenience I was overthinking. Then he said, "If the apartment's still decent, you can crash there for a while if you want. No rent. Win-win." No. Not a win. I didn't answer. 5 hours later, another message. "Or just hang on to the key for now. I might be back in the fall. Or maybe not. Either way, hope you're good." I blocked the number. Final update? Marcus cleaned out the apartment. Changed the locks. Told me the debt would go to collections. Ivan's name would be blacklisted with every major rental agency in the city. I donated the last unopened mail to the recycling bin. Deleted Ivan's number from my contacts. And erased the note from my fridge that reminded me, feed Marvin, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. No dramatic ending. No showdown. No message of regret from Bali. Just silence. And that's fine. Because I don't need closure from people who build their lives like parachutes, always ready to cut loose and float somewhere else, leaving the straps behind for someone else to trip over. I said yes to feeding a cat. I didn't say yes to covering a disappearance. Next time someone hands me a key and says, "Just a week," I'll ask for a return ticket.